Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on Sport.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire. Hope you had a great weekend. Craig Mish back with you. It's our Monday edition of the show, recapping everything that happened over the weekend in sports wagering and news, notes, information. Of course, the big stories this weekend coming out of college basketball and I guess a little bit surprisingly coming out of some hockey. I mean, some fantastic hockey being played in this Four Nations tournament. We'll get to that in just a second. Spring training underway for everyone, not just pitchers and catchers, full squads. Now reporting this week, we're going to have games, by the way, in spring training coming up this weekend. Stay tuned to that. Coach Young is with us. The NBA is on a break Monday and Tuesday, so we'll take a look at the first half of the season, also hit on some of those hot topics from what I guess was called the NBA All-Star Game yesterday. A little bizarre there. That and a whole lot more, and some NFL tidbits with Adam Kaplan, as we're probably a couple of months away from really getting into the NFL draft as the NFL is on a break. In fact, it's our first Monday without having NFL to talk about as well. But you know what? Sometimes things happen in sports that steal the headlines, and we're going to let hockey steal our headlines today for the first time probably in a really long time. Maybe ever here on NewsWire. It's possible. Maybe since the Stanley Cup with Florida and Edmonton. That could have been it. But Team USA beats Canada in the Four Nations tournament. Hey, this has been great to watch and a lot of fun, a lot of intensity. And in case you missed it over the weekend, fight after fight after fight in the first 10 seconds of this one. The victory does give Team USA 6 points. They clinch a spot in the championship game, which is coming up on Thursday. So naturally, we'll have that covered for you. Each of the other games and the teams have 2 points. So today's matchups will determine who the Americans face for the title. Possibility of Canada, possibility of Finland, Sweden still involved in this as well. But naturally, the buzz is about the intensity between Team USA and Canada over the weekend and what gives with all the fisticuffs.
Mike, I'm just curious what you thought the 3 fights off the opening couple of faceoffs did in terms of setting the tone and message for your team.
I just think it's very indicative of what this means to the players. There's 2 teams out there that are very competitive, that have a ton of pride for their respective teams and their countries. And for me, when you have an investment in trying to win like the way that it occurred, I think that's an indication of it. But what an incredible hockey game.
Well, if you a couple nights ago, and when I sat up here, and if you were going to tell me something was going to top that, I would not have believed you. But that topped it. It was, you know why it topped it? Because it wasn't planned. That wasn't two coaches throwing guys over saying this is happening. None of that happened. That was as organic as it gets. And it was probably, I guess 10 years of no international hockey exhaled in a minute and a half.
Great hockey being played over the weekend. And, of course, we have it covered for you here on SportsGrid coming up again in the championship game on Thursday. Meanwhile, more allegations against kicker Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens. 7 more women have accused Baltimore Ravens kicker Tucker of engaging in sexually inappropriate misconduct at high-end spas. This is being reported by the Baltimore Banner. Now the accusations are up to 16 therapists from Tucker. This is between 2012 and 2016. Tucker, of course, about a month ago went on Instagram and denied all of the allegations. Stay tuned. All right, our buddy Brady Cannon was on with us on Friday, gave us a couple of names for potential winners at the Genesis Open, and boy, was he right. Brady mentioned Ludwig Oberg, one of the great young golfers right now that is playing, and he won this thing 22-1. Also, Maverick McNeely finished second. He was 55-1. But look out, folks. Oberg, I know spelled with an A, but pronounced with an O, looks to be one of the best up-and-coming players on the tour. Look out, Rory. Look out, Scotty. Here comes Oberg, who had his whole family on hand for the championship.
A lot. It was a really cool finish to a great week. I've had my girlfriend here all week. My coach came in on Friday night. I've had some other guys on my team being with me all week. So it was really cool, and it felt like we did it together. I had tremendous help with Joe, my caddy, today, and it feels really cool.
It's the Genesis Invitational. We're at a different venue than we typically are, but you were here 3 weeks ago, got ill on the weekend. We're right in the mix at the start. Does it feel like a little bit of redemption after what happened?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I felt like I had a good chance of winning that tournament, but I wasn't really feeling like myself the last couple of days. And then sort of, I don't like pulling out of tournaments, but I felt like I had to at Pebble just to give myself some time to recover and be ready for this one. And sort of knowing how last week was at home, basically, a little bit of survival mode. But to come here and to win this event is really special.
Meanwhile, in Daytona yesterday, a lot of stopping and starting, a very long day for those people who attended at Daytona International Speedway. And a rarity at the Daytona 500 is William Byron won again. He's back-to-back champions at the Daytona. This doesn't happen all that often. A lot of starting and stopping, a lot of accidents, some weather involved as well, but they finally got this done under the lights. Byron talked about getting the big win, this audio and video courtesy of ESPN.
I told some people during the week it'd be a nice footnote after the fact, but this is incredible. Just really proud of this group. They worked super hard during the offseason. We had an amazing car, but we just got trapped in the back, late in the race, and just had to kind of navigate our way through those restarts. And obviously had some good breaks there at the end, and just was in disbelief, honestly, the way that unfolded down the backstretch. But I was committed to go to the third lane into 3, and it just that's fortunately for me, that's where the wreck didn't happen. So that was awesome.
What is old is new again. Once upon a time, there was a WNBA team in Cleveland. They're bringing it back. It was the Cleveland Rockers, and they folded in 2003. It looks like the WNBA is going to expand back to Cleveland again. Announcement made yesterday as the WNBA continues to be a huge moneymaker, by the way, around the league. All right, in college basketball yesterday, St. John survived a very close game with Creighton. In fact, they didn't cover the spread. I believe it was 6.5, 79-73. The final score there. St. John's now leads the Big East by 2 games. We're closing in on the end of the season. They got a shot to win the regular season title. Kadari Richmond had 19 points, 10 rebounds for the Red Storm, who has just been playing some great basketball. And again, they went 1-1 last week, so not sure what the ranking will be when it comes out later today. Perhaps still inside the top 10, depending on some things. The key in this game, lack of turnovers, says Rick Pitino. They just held on to the ball well.
I think when you have, even though you're not shooting a high percentage, but anytime you have 21 assists and 5 turnovers. That's an amazing performance because they did a lot of really good things on offense. The free throws, I think Zuby, it just gets into his head. He's a good free throw shooter. It's just when he starts thinking about it instead of just shooting normally. But we played a really good game. They're a very good basketball team. They're tough to play against. But look, when you play a whole basketball game with this much pressure on it and only turn it over 5 times, it's an amazing feat.
So St. John's picks up a win. So does number 1 Auburn. They beat Alabama final 94-85. And Duke ends up losing. Number 3 Duke beat Stanford, 106-70. A little confusion there, but Cooper Flagg did have a nice game. He had 19.6 assists. All right, now over to Major League Baseball as we get ready to close it out. A couple of signings over the weekend. Paul DeJong is back in the big leagues again, 3rd team in 3 years. This time he's with the Nationals. It's a 1-year, $1 million deal. Nolan Arenado did not get traded. He's back in Jupiter with the Cardinals. Still a possibility he could get moved. Shohei Ohtani back on the mound for the Los Angeles Dodgers. It looks like Ohtani could be ready come the first turnaround in the Dodgers rotation at the start of the season. And a bizarre story coming out of Tampa today is Giancarlo Stanton has elbow issues, both elbows, left and right tendonitis, uncertain for opening day. More baseball talk coming up next. Matt Lutovsky joins us from Sporting News. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and 4th down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Matt Lutovsky in the house from Sporting News. We'll touch on the very latest in Major League Baseball, go around the National League West today. Matt, once again, great to have you back here on NewsWire on this President's Day. Thanks for coming on the show. All right, so good news for the Dodgers, as if they really needed any more good news. Shohei Ohtani back on the mound, throwing his first bullpen of spring training. This is as close, Matt, to a super team as we have seen in a long time. I know that the Yankees won a bunch of World Series in 96 and 98, and they sort of had that dynasty there for a while. But the Dodgers are really in a position not just to be happy to make the postseason, but anything less than winning the World Series. I mean, that's super high expectations.
Yeah, it's it's probably an interesting feeling for the fans, right? Because it's all or nothing. You got to win, but certainly I think most fan bases would trade places with them right now, knowing they're going into the season with the ability to root for this team. And they're loaded top to bottom. The pitching staff, the rotation, they always deal with injuries, but they have enough depth that they should be able to survive it. Obviously, they have a great lineup. They have the best player in the world. There's really no holes in the team. I mean, obviously, again, you can point to injuries, you can point to potential attrition, and how is that going to weaken them? And are they going to be vulnerable in that regard? But overall, given their depth, given their resources, and given their talent level, they're clearly the class of the division, of the NL, I would say of the entire league. And the only drawback to that is if you're a bettor looking to get in on some action for them, there's simply no value. I mean, you got to get real creative to find value with anything betting on the Dodgers, because otherwise it just, it's priced in. Their talent is priced into all their lines. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and in addition to their season win total, which is the highest of any win total I can ever recall since tracking this, I've definitely seen some 100s and 101s and maybe a 102. I don't ever remember seeing a 104.5. And so that's just the nature of the beast here. When you have so many great players, maybe taking them to win the NL at plus 140 is a thing. You never know what could happen in the World Series. That's why I say that, because it's, again, strange things happen. Freddie Freeman doesn't hit a grand slam. Like, you never know how things can change there. But so the daunting task for the rest of this division, as they open up camp and get ready to play some spring training games, is who is second, Matt, behind the Dodgers. There's a couple of really good candidates, and then just depends on how you feel about the Giants. But let's start with the Padres, at least for the time being. Kind of quiet off season for them. Their owner passed away last year. There was this battle between who's going to own the team and not, and so naturally that puts the finances in a little bit of a bind. Seems like they worked that out, and they did sign Nick Pivetta to a 4-year, $55 million contract. But the postseason is going to be the deal for this team. Like, to think that you can win the division, I'm not saying it's far-fetched, anything can happen, but their win total is 85.5, so that tells you they're supposed to be a pretty good team.
Yeah, and I think they are, and I think we saw that last year. We saw how they pushed the Dodgers, and at one point, there's a lot of people thinking, hey, this is the year they're going to break through. They're actually going to do it, and they weren't quite able to finish the job, but they are very talented. They have pitching, they have hitting, they kind of have it all. I think this cloud sort of hangs over them, though, with all the rumors about needing to shed payroll, and is this guy going to be gone, and is that guy going to be gone, and it worries you a little bit if you're looking to get in on them early, that if this starts slowly, if this starts poorly, are they going to sort of, not throw in the towel completely, but are they going to sort of throttle it back and look to make some moves and save a little money? But overall, talented team, like you said, quiet off season. I think a lot of times when people are approaching, preseason predictions or looking to get some preseason bets down, they really like the teams that shook things up a lot. There's a little bit more imagination when you have a team like that, and the Padres didn't do that. So, maybe they're getting slept on a little bit, honestly, because the talent's there to once again make a very deep run in the postseason.
Yeah, 85.5 is their win total, and to win the NL, they're 12-1. To win the World Series, they are 26-1. And the Padres have been that team that has given the Dodgers fits.
Yep.
But there are 162 games, not like 15. And so that's the deal. The Dodgers may beat up on everybody else. All right, now, let's go to another team in the NL West real quick, where I think the major move, of course, was adding Willy Adames to the San Francisco Giants lineup. But really the bigger move, I think, Matt, I don't know if you agree or not, was changing up the front office, where Buster Posey is now running the Giants. And so they did make some moves, but they've had a really hard time acquiring talent through free agency. It just seems like a lot of players don't want to sign with them. The strength of the team will be their rotation, where they added Justin Verlander, as we would probably call him their third starter, maybe their fourth. Logan Webb is great. Robbie Ray, when healthy, is great. Hicks had a really good start to last season, and Kyle Harrison, once upon a time, was thought to be an ace. He'll slot in as their fifth starter, but certainly just hard to generate offense in that park. And I wonder if Buster Posey changing the way that they view players and doing things make this a better team or worse. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, that's just it. It's a transition year, and like you said, the pitching is there. And anytime a team has pitching, that's going to keep them in every game. Then you need to generate just enough offense, and you can have one of those runs. You can have a really good year with that kind of formula. Is this team that team? I don't know. It's tough to look at them in the division they're in and feel overly confident about them. But this is a bit of a transition year, like you said, and I think it'll be interesting to watch from afar. I don't think a wild card's out of the question by any means, but definitely not a team that I'm over the top excited about for a pennant or anything beyond that.
Yeah, 79.5 is their season win total. And the reason why it is under 80 is because there's another team that has a higher win total than them. And that, Matt, is the Arizona Diamondbacks, who acquired Corbin Burns this past offseason. We'll leave the Rockies out for another day or another conversation. But, certainly there is just as good a chance as Arizona finishing second in this division as San Diego. I think that's kind of the way it lines up with the Dodgers being fourth.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a team that made some improvements in the offseason. Again, kind of what I was saying, people look at that and get excited. But the other thing you got to remember with this team is you got an MVP candidate player in Corbin Carroll who had a down year. So just that sort of internal improvement can really raise the floor, raise the ceiling of this team. When you add in, bringing in an ace like Corbin Burns, this is the team I think a lot of people are looking at that can really make a run, can potentially challenge the Dodgers in the postseason. And I think the ingredients are there for that too. Don't want to get overly excited about a team just because they made some moves, but they're very talented.
Our friends in Denver, Matt, are going to be upset with us. We apologize. We'll get to the Rockies another day. Thanks for coming on, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Adam Kaplan joins us next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You want me to solve all this tush-push and fourth down malarkey that goes on with the officials? Here's a crazy idea. Get rid of the worst rule in the NFL, and that is forward progress. How about this? Where I knock your ass in the ground is where the ball goes, period. Let's end this whole conversation. Like, if I drop you back 4 yards, then you lost 4 yards. If we get rid of forward progress, this tush-push and everything else is taken care of. Where I put your tail on the ground is where the ball goes, end of conversation. It's the dumbest rule and the most arbitrary rule. The only thing that is a worse call in the NFL than forward progress is the punt that goes out of bounds when you watch the official walk down the sideline having absolutely no clue where that ball crossed over. All I can think of is that Price is Right game go do-de-do-de-do, do-de-do-de-do, as he's walking down the sideline, arbitrarily trying to figure out where the ball crossed over because he's got no clue.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. A short period of time we have with Adam Kaplan today to dive into the latest in the NFL. We'll sort of track this once a week as we go on throughout the offseason to see if there's anything significant happening. We bring in our SportsGrid insider, Adam Kaplan, for that. Adam, great to have you back here on NewsWire. And we found out late last week, officially, Aaron Rodgers will be somewhere else outside of the New York Jets. And I guess let's dive into some of the possibilities here and where do the Jets go, do you think, Adam, from here?
Yeah, it's not. Listen, I've made this pretty clear to Pharrell coast to coast, going back a number of weeks. This is a tough year to need a quarterback. You and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago, about the draft class. So the Jets here, though they have a good roster, not a great roster, they have a major problem at quarterback. They've got problems in the offensive line, which they've got to correct. But it all starts at quarterback for this football team. They're going to move on from Rodgers' likely release. It's highly unlikely anyone would trade for him. Based on his age, he turns 42 in December. Based on the contract structure, the Jets already know they're taking a major cap hit no matter what happens. It is what it is. But when you look at this list, it starts with, ironically, former Jet first-round pick Sam Darnold, who came out of nowhere. Just nobody saw this coming. I don't even know if the Vikings saw it coming, but what happened is those last two games for him were not very good. It opened up so maybe a can of worms. Okay, what is Sam Darnold at this point in his career? Is he what we thought he was? Was that a mirage what we saw for most of the season? So that's a problem, but he's by far the best quarterback for this free agent class. And Craig, when you look at my list of quarterbacks, there's a major drop-off. And Darnold is, by the way, still a young quarterback, well on 30. You got Russell Wilson in his mid-30s. I'd be surprised if he comes back to the Steelers. I really would be. I know there were some coaches on that staff that were not totally bought in for him being the starter to close the season. They wanted to take a look at Justin Fields, who, by the way, is also a free agent, who's on our list here. Those would be the three starters. And then you look at journeyman backups like Jimmy Garoppolo, Josh Dobbs, Mason Rudolph, Andy Dalton, really Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Winston, Marcus Mariota. They're all backups. But then you look at the draft. Jackson Dart's a guy you and I have talked about a little bit. If anybody from that second group of quarterbacks, after Warden Sanders sneaks into the first round, it would be Jackson Dart, who really did have a very good Senior Bowl week. I was there. I saw it. I know a lot of scouts I talked to were very impressed with it.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, look, I can only give you my opinion, and that is that I don't, and I understand, like, from a reporting standpoint, you're doing what you're supposed to do, and we're doing what we're supposed to do. But I will be absolutely shocked if the Jets do anything except for take the year off and sign somebody from not just tier 2, but maybe even tier 3, going back to a complete backup situation. Mike White, I cannot see them going after any even stopgap starter, very similar to what the Patriots did this past year. Brissett with the guy in waiting and then eventually turned it over. That's the way I see it coming, but I guess we'll see. All right, so look, we're still a week into the offseason. Any time, Adam, in history of sports, when a player loses the big game, we always hear, oh, he could retire. I don't know that they're going to come back. And Aaron Donald did this recently a few times. I mean, do you really think Travis Kelce is going to retire? And if he did it, do you think he's going to go out like this? I don't.
It's funny you say that. So covering this business 27 years, when I talk to players about what their mindset is after something like this, where it's one thing if it was a close game, but it was not. It was a blowout. That the Super Bowl loss the Chiefs had to the Eagles was not competitive. I would agree with your assessment. They don't want that. They don't want to end it on that way. See, Kelce's healthy. He's clearly not the same player. He dropped off. So what you're weighing is what just happened to where he is at in his career, where he's clearly near the end. He could probably play one more year and give them the best that he could. Now, I know the Chiefs have guys who are backing him up, who they like. Noah Gray signed a 3-year, $18 million extension. You know, 6 a year, which is a modest deal, but he's a pretty good athlete. I talked to some people around the league about him. Pretty good athlete. He's more of a 1A tight end. Jared Wiley, the other tight end who they drafted last year, is more of an inline tight end. He, by the way, suffered an ACL injury during practice last season. So it's not a great situation to be in. But I could tell you this. If you're the Chiefs and you're looking at the draft, this draft is actually really good. The guy that I really like is Jason Taylor's son, Mason Taylor, out of LSU, who will go within the first 3 rounds. Tyler Warren is everyone's favorite to go within the top 10, top 15 area. He's phenomenal out of Penn State. I love him, the tight end of Michigan. Fadden Jr., the tight end of Bowling Green, and Helm, the tight end of Texas. We're going to have 6 tight ends within the first 3 rounds. So if Kelce retires, we'll certainly have a chance to get one of those guys.
Yeah, and it feels like Tony Gonzalez, 1 year too long. Antonio Gates, 1 year too long. Yep. Feels like Travis Kelce coming 1 year too long, probably coming up. They can't tear the jersey off these guys. All right, Adam, great to see you again. We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
slow play drumbeat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
There's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are going to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams, who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night, but it doesn't seem to matter to them.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Pat Evans is with us from Legal Sports Report here on this Monday, tackling some of the big issues surrounding the world of sports wagering. We'll get an update in Indiana and also the latest on online casino gaming. Pat, great to have you back here on NewsWire. Well, unfortunately, very, very close vote here in the state of Minnesota. My gosh, they just cannot get sports betting even close to the finish line here to get it to the next stage. And now I think it looks like, Pat, a lot of disappointment in there, at least from what I'm reading, and especially over at Legal Sports Report. A lot of people do want sports betting there, but it seems like there's just this very even battle in the legislature as to who wants it and who doesn't.
Yeah, it's been obviously a really interesting journey that we've talked about for multiple years now on this show with you in Minnesota. And to your point, yeah, a lot of parties want it. You know, you've got the Democrat Farmer Labor Party on one side who want the tribes to have exclusivity. You've got the Republicans who want the horse racing tracks and charitable gaming involved. And that's what we've always thought kind of was the separation point, with the two parties kind of disagreeing and needing a compromise to come into a middle agreement and say, hey, let's get this done and do it. Well, at the end of last session, we thought that was happening. We had reports of a deal on the ground in the Capitol saying, hey, we've got a deal all finished up between all the stakeholders. We're just running out of time, and the session ran out of time before they could vote on it. Well, this year, I mean, you figure, okay, well, we had a deal on the table. Let's go ahead and get it over this year. Well, it started, again, kind of normally. You had a Republican bill filed. You had a Democrat bill filed. Okay, we're kind of in the same boat. Then we had our first hearing on late last week, and Senator Matt Klein, a Democrat, led his bill into this committee, the first of 5 or 6 committee stops. So it is a huge journey in Minnesota, the way they put together their bills. And he started off kind of promising. He said, I'm adding an amendment, which was then agreed upon by everybody on the committee, that would bring the Republican desires into it. We had a ton of testimonies from various stakeholders, including the tribes and the track and, all that, saying, this is great, this is great. Well, then all of a sudden, multiple lawmakers stood up, particularly Senator Make Wade. She kind of really took a fine-tooth comb to this and asked a lot of questions regarding responsible gambling and questioning kind of the way that the technology companies or the way the sportsbook companies kind of operate like technology companies and social media and the algorithms to keep you in tune, kind of putting out stipulations of, hey, if we do this, I'll be okay with it. But as it is now, it's not. And so then, yeah, we had a 6-6 vote on the committee, which stalemates it. It's not dead by any means. It can come back to that committee and then advance forward again if they work on it. But this is something that May Quaid told me in the fall was, listen, even if the stakeholders come together, there's enough negative votes in both chambers that this isn't going to get done without major responsible gambling caveats. And that's what we've seen. And immediately following that hearing, Senator John Marty, who is in opposition to sports betting, but has a bill loaded with responsible gambling measures, came up and said, hey, I don't want to do this, but if we do legalize it, I want all these things in it. And then he just said, you know what, since the other bill didn't advance, let's table this. So, yeah, it's not done yet, but certainly not a good step, not a promising step for sports betting in Minnesota this year, which, to your point, a lot of people in Minnesota do want it. And so that's got to be gut-wrenching to see this news early in the session.
Yeah, definitely so. And, unfortunate for us to not have a new state legalized sports betting this year. A lot of backlash coming too, Pat, from online casino gaming. Like, this seems to be gaining a lot of steam everywhere here. I thought this would be the year of that. Seems like it's going the other direction.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of just how things are shaping up this year in online gaming in general. In December, we had that U.S. Senate hearing to kind of look into it, and that certainly was a first step and not going away at the national level. And so there is just lots of headwinds. You've got a lot of major media outlets kind of writing about the negatives of the industry, and certainly there are plenty, but, that kind of negates the importance of regulating it. And so it's all out in the open and everything. You talk about all these scandals that get caught. It's because it's in a regulated market, not because it's legal. But, in Indiana, it probably was our best chance this year for a state to go ahead and pass an online casino, which is tough because that is a tough state because they took a moratorium last year because of a legal conviction related to gambling legislation. So they were like, we're not even touching the issue. But previous years before that, online casino had been talked about, and industry stakeholders said, hey, this could be a state that could be next. And this year it started off strong. It passed a committee, and then it just kind of died. You had 2 weeks ago, you had legislative leadership saying on both sides in the House and the Senate saying, hey, this is something that we certainly need to look at. We want to look at, but we need to get it right. And, it didn't get a hearing in the Ways and Means Committee in the House. Basically, the House leader came out and said, you know what? We got it a step. We've got a lot of things to look at. We need to make sure we get this right. This isn't the year. So online casino in Indiana is dead. There's a few other states that it's kind of bouncing around. Illinois, it was mentioned in a budget by Governor Pritzker. Maryland's got some big discussions going on. So it's certainly still alive some spots, but it's quickly been killed in other areas just because it is a very big issue. Just the idea of a slot machine in a pocket is a lot, and it is a big deal for a lot of people. And lawmakers certainly are not taking that lightly.
Yeah, and on top of it, it's I would guess it's that a battle over tax rate. Like, really, in the end, it's all about money. They'll push this through if the tax rate is high enough. If they said, hey, we'll tax you 80%, I think that this would pass everywhere. But now there's this new group that's against online casino gaming just everywhere. So, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just they just don't feel safe passing this thing.
Yeah, and this is something we've known, but because we've watched the hearings in Maryland, we've heard the hearings in Louisiana, where Cordish Companies specifically has been very vocal in their opposition to expanding online. Of course, they own regional casino companies or regional casinos in each of these states, and they say, you know what, we like what we have. We don't need to expand it. We don't need to be detrimental to the public societal health. We don't need to lose brick and mortar revenue. There's several other arguments that they put out, but they are definitely out and against it at all these hearings. And now they've put together a group of similar sized regional casino companies, including Churchill Downs. There's a few other ones that are escaping me at the moment, but they've all come together and they've put together a group. They just released a study, which you can find on legalsportsreport.com. We link to that in the story, that kind of outlines why they are against it and the arguments they make. Again, a lot of it is the brick and mortar cannibalization of the revenue, which they argue can also cost plenty of jobs from the casino workers. And so, yeah, this is to kind of our point of big headwinds, having a significant chunk of regional operators who have longstanding relationships in these legislators going against this issue certainly does have some weight. I mean, we just look at Mississippi, which you and I talk about pretty regularly, trying to go online with sports betting. And a lot of the opposition there are the locally owned casinos who say, no, we don't want to lose our sports books and our revenue from that to major operators that come into the state. So, it's a kind of a big deal that this group is emerging and as fully against the expansion of online gambling.
Yeah, and I would think that maybe as we go on, we'll find out whether or not it really is money or people genuinely don't like the background as to what this could potentially create. We've seen a lot of groups step in on sports betting. This obviously opens up a much bigger door for people to bet online. Thanks again, Pat, for coming on the show. We'll keep it updated.
Yep, thanks as always, Craig.
All right, coming up next, there was an NBA All-Star game, I guess, last night. Coach Young will be with us to tell us if that is true or not, and also what we can expect from this. So stick with us here on the grid as Coach Young's up next. And then coming up at 12 o'clock Eastern, we got Smiley ready to tell you the latest as to what happened at the Genesis Open. We'll be right back.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's is offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Coach Young is with us, most importantly, to break down the second half of this NBA season. But we did have some semblance of an all-star weekend and game yesterday, so let's bring Coach in. Coach, I'm not really sure what to make of everything that happened, and I understand that they're trying to make things more fun, more interesting. I don't know if they accomplished what they were looking to do here, but it is simply a shame because when you and I grew up, even though the games were, not really played by defense, it was mostly offense, it did give an opportunity for us to see the league's biggest stars playing against each other, some one-on-ones, some fun shots, and some memorable moments. And now we're getting players an hour before the game saying they're not even playing. Like, what are we doing here?
Craig, great to be on with you. Listen, it's simply put, the NBA, when guys started changing teams and changing conferences and staying in its, it lost its luster. Like when you think about when we grew up, right? Let's just take the 80s. You knew Magic was on the West, Bird was on the East. Robinson and Olajuwon were on the West. Ewing was on the East. Barkley was like the kind of main guy that went east to west when he got traded to Phoenix. Isaiah was in the East. Dominique Wilkins was in the East, right? So to me, it lost its luster, kind of like baseball lost its luster. You know this, when guys started changing leagues. It just didn't have that same appeal, right? And that, especially the fact of so many games were on TV. Like sometimes the All-Star game was the time that you got to see guys that you didn't get to see play often. So there's that angle, right? I was thinking about this on a commercial break. I would say 3 times to me since 90, the All-Star game meant something, right? 91, 92, I should say. Magic Johnson in Orlando comes back after the AIDS virus and puts on that performance. And then the other 2 are honestly Jordan, Kobe, the 98 All-Star game at MSG, the 2003 All-Star game, MJ's last one as a Wizard playing in Houston. That had a semblance of defense. This didn't have it. They didn't have competitiveness. Craig, I don't watch it. I don't need to. For what? As a coach, to get frustrated for 2 hours, 3 hours? It reeks, but it's amazing how you look at the Four Nations Cup of hockey. I don't watch hockey, but I'll tell you right now, that USA-Canada game on Saturday, when they were dropping the gloves and fighting 3 times in 9 seconds, yeah, that got my attention because of competitiveness. You came out of the All-Star game now hearing the start of the tea leaves of the, hey, USA World, do we do something? I've been pushing that narrative on this network for 2 years. Here's how you do it. On non-Olympic and FIBA years, which would be this year, this should have been one that they did USA versus World. When it's a FIBA or the Olympics, don't do it. But because the FIBA and the Olympics, it's every 2 years, those alternate years, give us a little bit of a different format, put some national pride on the line, put some money on the line, maybe to charity, and I think you may be able to get something.
Maybe so, because it was virtually unwatchable. In fact, Saturday night now has become the main event, like in baseball, where you have the home run derby. The skills competitions have been definitely the greatest ones. Mac McClung won the dunk contest again. I'm actually surprised. Couldn't even bet on this up until like an hour before, but he says he's done now after winning 3 straight. Tyler Hero wins the 3-point contest, and the skills competition goes to the Cavs with Mitchell and Mobley, who definitely cared, it seemed like, to participate in this and win as well. So this is the one thing that the NBA sort of still does have going for them. And maybe that's just the way that this is headed, Coach, is that, I just don't think that format that they had worked on Sunday night based on what I'm seeing. But at least Saturday gives people some interest.
Yeah, it does. Listen, Mac McClung, what's good about Mac is Mac has been a YouTube sensation for dunking since high school. So people know about him. If it was any other G League nondescript guy, it wouldn't carry as much weight. You see sometimes, I see guys there was a slam dunk contest at a Cavs game that was at halftime that was better than almost any slam dunk contest in the last 10 years. And those 2 guys I never heard of. Maybe we need to bring some YouTube guys in there, something to spice it up. 3-point shooter was good. You had stars. Listen, the Spurs tried to cheat and circumvent the rules of the skills competition. Craig, I'm all for that. If you want to skirt the rules and you want to try and cheat to win a skills competition, that means you care. Where did they miss the mark? 2 names, and they're not men. It's Ionescu, because they didn't do the 3-point shootout with him and Steph. People want to see that rematch. And listen, Caitlin Clark said no. And there's a famous wrestler when I was a kid, $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Everyone's got a price. They better find that price for Caitlin Clark and get her there this next year. I guarantee you ratings will be through the roof.
Yeah, WNBA, the most popular it's ever been. All right, so the NBA has a couple of days off here. It gives us an opportunity to take a look at the East and the West. Coach, let's jump into the East first. Cleveland has been the class of the East. Boston has slept walk through probably weeks at a time. So this is why they're still number 2 and not number 1. Beyond that, it does feel like beyond Milwaukee, to me, it's going to be one of these 5 teams playing for the East title.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Boston's the defending champion. I think they go through some periods of where they don't give the effort you want. It kind of bothers Joe Mazzulla. Your concern with Boston is the fact that they just shoot way too many threes, and you get them on a cold night or two, then there could be a problem. Cleveland, great story. Can't say enough what Kenny Atkinson's done for that team. The team to watch is going to be New York and Orlando. Orlando, if they can stay healthy because they can defend, and Mitchell Robinson is going to be one of the biggest additions at the trade deadline, but he wasn't a trade. He's just been injured. Mitchell Robinson can shore up that defense. They can move Cat to the 4 at times. Knicks go big on big. They become a problem. New York is a team to watch. Can they make the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since '99? If they're on the other side of the bracket of Boston, I think they make it to the Eastern Conference Final.
And the stars are all in the West. I mean, this is, star gets hot and you never know. OKC, Memphis has given them trouble. I mean, you could go through all 6 of these teams and find a superstar Hall of Famer there. Maybe that's just the key in March and April.
Except for Houston. That's the team that you need to watch out for. Ime Udoka, one of the top 10 coaches in the league. He can coach defense. That team's young and exciting, and Thompson's been a key for the latest spark.
Amen, as you would say. No pun intended. Thanks, Coach.
Slow play drum beat grows louder and louder every week, to the point now that they're making overt references to it on the broadcast.
So there's plenty of other guys that have to get faster. Tom definitely is more deliberate in his conversations, always has been since he's been on tour. I just think about Joe Scavern, when those two started working together, how their conversations always seem to just keep on going and going.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
At some point, these 80s are to learn we don't need to hire ex-NBA guys. I need guys with college experience who's gone out and recruited, who knows how to develop talent. NBA guys with no college experience don't work in college basketball. I understand they run NBA-style offenses, but it doesn't mean they can run college programs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In a short format tournament like this, like the Olympics, now this is even smaller, only 4 teams. Who's got the best goaltending? You're talking 3 round robin games and then a knockout with 4 teams. So you're playing 5 games.
I'm not sold yet, Mike, on the USA stuff, on the merch, but I think I'm sold on the USA at least being in the final.
Only on SportsGrid.
Patino himself, in a clip that we just played, said basically the stats are not backing up the team's wins.
St. John's offensive glass. That's where a lot of opportunities for St. John's came from. St. John's does not shoot the basketball well. It might even be fair to say they shoot it poorly. They were 3 of 16 from deep last night. But it doesn't seem to matter to them.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As we get ready to wrap things up, we're in the heat of the college basketball season, so we'll talk about that. And generally speaking, I mean, we got some really fun stuff coming with this 4 Nations hockey on the championship on Thursday night. So that and a whole lot more as we get ready to wrap up today's program here on this eventful Monday. Time now for some last licks. I mean, this is a story that reads interesting, but I don't know that is actually realistic. I mean, Cooper Flagg of Duke is arguably the number one player in the country. It's hard to debate. It's hard to even find anybody else. But let's be honest, some players that do go to Duke end up playing multiple years there. And so there is a report out there that states that Flagg may indeed stay for another season with the Duke Blue Devils. Now, the one element that has certainly changed the game, and I don't know what his NIL money is, even if he has any NIL money, is NIL money. Like, these are things that did not exist in the past. But to me, call me a little suspicious of the fact that this would come out, by the way, around the time that the team needs to play their best basketball for the NCAA tournament. I think it's sort of the kind of thing that you do to give the team a little bit of motivation to say, hey, look, I'm going to be back. If a story came out basically that said that he was going to be leaving, how would the kids feel about that? They'd probably say, oh, this is our last run, goodbye, farewell. And I still think it is goodbye and farewell for Cooper Flagg. I do think he'll go to the NBA. But needless to say, really good strategy to have a story percolate like this now, because we're almost done in the month of February. When we hit March, it's time for March Madness in the NCAA tournament, and Duke, outside of going to a Final Four, is going to have a season that nobody wants to see if they don't get that far. So good timing, good story. Do I believe it? Probably not. Meanwhile, how about this? 71 games in a row winning at home. This is true. South Carolina's Gamecocks basketball team won 71 straight games on the women's side until they finally were upset. And guess who did it? Oh boy, yep. UConn, right? Should this be a surprise to anybody? Gino and company? 87-58 the final. The Gamecocks had not lost a game since 2020 at home. I mean, this is years of playing college basketball games at home. But needless to say, the Gamecocks have been one of the best teams in all of college basketball for the women's side. UConn has maybe the most historic coach going right now in Gino Auriemma. So not a surprise, I think, that this is the team to end up doing it. But I think, at least from what I read online, a very big surprise to lose by 30. I think that, to me, is more of the issue here for South Carolina. But we'll see what happens with them, as I think a lot more attention, by the way, is going to go toward the women's Final Four this year as well, which we'll have covered for you here on SportsGrid when March Madness begins in less than a month. And finally, let's get to the University of Illinois, who, to say they blew it would be an understatement. Now, they decided to hang up a banner and retire a number. And this is Terrence Shannon Jr. of Illinois, had his number retired yesterday. And when they raised the banner, how this made it this far, I'm going to show you a picture here. It was upside down. They raised an upside down banner when they retired a jersey. Now, I have seen a lot of retirement jerseys, folks. I have never, ever seen this happen before. They fixed it very quickly. But how did they get this far without knowing it was upside down? Like, who were the people responsible for this when they, what happened was in the ceremony, they had it covered at first, and then they, take off the cover, and then they showed it upside down. And they actually started lifting it up too until they got it fixed. Fix it around. Now, somebody said online, somebody's getting fired for that. Look, somebody made a mistake. I get it. It happens. But, first time ever for me. Terrence Shannon Jr. will always have this moment to remember, having his jersey retired in upside-down fashion. Congratulations to him. That'll do it for our show today. And thanks again to everybody for streaming us and watching us. We had a lot of great guests on the show today, too. Adam Kaplan, of course, Matt Lutovsky, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. Thanks to all of them for coming on the show. And Coach Young, who will be a regular contributor now to NewsWire, now that the college basketball and NBA seasons are in full swing. As a reminder, we'll be right back with you here tomorrow for our next edition of the show. Also, as a reminder, Smiley Kaufman's coming up at noon. Scott Farrell, 3 o'clock Eastern, coast to coast. Make sure you stick around for him, followed by Game Time Decisions, in-game live game day. And then tonight, I believe Gabe is back on the air. Gabe is back on the air tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you tune in to his show as well. Thanks to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Lots of great college basketball to cover for you as we continue on. NBA on a break. Baseball getting ready for some spring training games. We'll have it all covered for you as we head toward one of the biggest events in sports in the country, which is the NCAA tournament. March Madness almost upon us. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.